Hi, I'm Carissa.
I'm Belinda.
And I'm Louise, and this is our EDC1200 multimedia presentation on how might education mediate difference and dominance.
Good evening. The anger of Australia Day has flared again with tent embassy protesters marching on Parliament House to burn the national flag. Indigenous leaders say they're appalled by yesterday's scenes, but activists say they will keep fighting for Aboriginal sovereignty over Australia.
Protesters descend on Parliament House. But today, it's not political figures being targeted, but symbols of our nation, with protesters spitting on the Australian flag before setting it alight and spitting again.
The notion of difference is presented in this incident by showing the diversity of one cultural group, this being the Aboriginal community. They were being recognised as the other, and forming the idea that this community is a deficit to the white Anglo-Saxon dominant population, who are seen as the typical Australian.
Throughout Australia, there is an overall national identity that is clearly dominant, but within this identity there are numerous other groups. One example is the Aboriginal Australian identity. Throughout the current Australian community, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are traditionally recognised as the original landowners, and they form a dominant part of Australian identity as a whole. Although Aboriginal people are seen in this way, as a group they often feel disadvantaged and are continually trying to find their own space in contemporary Australian society.
This piece of news could easily be adapted and used as the basis to develop an extensive series of lessons for children in grades 5 to 6. These age groups would be most suitable as the current curriculum states that culture, identity and the way that diversity is respected is to be studied at this age level. Units of inquiry during these years are the study of Australian law and Parliament, and in addition the concept of Aboriginality. In the next few minutes we will talk about some teaching ideas for our chosen class age in regards to the Aboriginal section of their curriculum.
Australia Day is a significant day to all Australians, and having this event splashed out over the news bulletins seemed outrageous to the public. The political correctness in everyday society would deem it unacceptable for white Australians to stand outside Uluru and burn the Aboriginal flag. Because of this, the idea of space and place could be looked at by students in the classroom. First of all, as a class, students could brainstorm and talk about the significance of Parliament House and Uluru to the two cultures in question. Some research could also be conducted by students if knowledge is lacking in these areas. Building from the quote, "We move through space, but we stop and interact with places."
By introducing the idea of places to students, they will then begin to learn that within places, groups of people are expected to conduct themselves in different ways. This act demonstrated disrespect not only for the country as a whole, but the identity of each individual. Social behaviours such as spitting and burning a national symbol is insulting and seen as disrespectful to those who use that symbol as a sense of pride. The children could then explore these issues as a class group to understand the meaning of places.
Another lesson idea would be to talk to children about respect for others as well as themselves. One way would be to get them to identify the similarities of others' beliefs, values and attitudes compared to their own. Once children have an understanding of different cultures, they could be given the opportunity to be creative and create a role play. This may assist them with being able to identify with an international set of values that they can apply to situations they may come across within Australia. For example, the children may find that it is common in almost every culture that adults are shown large amounts of respect and given authority. Children could also be asked who is in charge at school and why. This could also lead to discussion on Aboriginal elders and their importance in Aboriginal traditions, culture and stories.
Children could examine the importance of symbolism after looking at this piece of news. Australian runner Cathy Freeman demonstrated the coming together of two cultures by doing her victory lap with both Aboriginal and Australian flags at the Sydney Olympics in 2000. This powerful image shows that some Aboriginal people identify themselves not only as Aboriginal but also Australian. The students in the class could set out to analyse this event and what it meant. By performing the act of burning the Australian flag, the group in question distanced themselves from the majority of Aboriginal people. This distancing caused the Aboriginal people involved to be recognised as different. This would make their actions seem to be tolerable and set a benchmark for socially unacceptable behaviour.
Students could also participate in a simple and entertaining game of Chinese whispers. This will demonstrate to the class how the meaning of a story or verse can easily be taken out of context and changed simply by passing from one person to another. This was an important factor in the 10th Embassy event. Due to one offhand remark made, the message was then passed along and contorted before reaching the final destination, causing this uproar. Students could also use the 6 thinking hat processes to analyse the event and how it could have been handled differently on both sides. Another activity could be to tell some of the stories of the dreaming, reading of the rainbow serpent and other Aboriginal cultural stories. Children in the classroom could then explore the meanings of these important stories and what they represent to the Aboriginal people. By studying and picking apart this news article and other activities mentioned over a few lessons, students would not only be exposed to different cultures and traditions, but also to discover the importance of symbolism, respect, and the worth of people and their places. By effectively engaging students in the age-appropriate activities briefly outlined above, this news article becomes the basis for much more in-depth learning outcomes and reflection.